All right, so in today's math lesson, our math goal is to multiply unit fractions by whole numbers. Please write down everything you know about multiplication. Okay, so hopefully you got some of these. It's a faster way of adding. It's repeated addition. It's equal groups. The things you're multiplying by, the numbers are called a factor, and the answer is called the product. All right, so how else can we write 2 times 5? What other symbols can be used to denote 2 times 5? Go ahead and pause the video and write them down, then come back to me. Okay, so other symbols besides the multiplication, the X that we're normally used to seeing, right, is the dot or a star. Okay, what about division? So we know that division is the opposite of multiplication, right? They're a fact family. What else can be, how else can you write the division? What other symbols can you use for division? Pause the video and write that down. Okay, so you can also write it with this symbol here, right? With the little lines here, 12 divided by 4. And then remember, you can also write it 12 divided by 4 with the slanted line or in fraction form. Remember, we learned that in Unit 1. You can also, fraction bar means division. So the fraction bar can be slanted or mostly it's seen horizontally, right? But this also means division, 12 divided by 4. Okay, let's start out by just looking at this problem. A path around a large park is 8 kilometers long. Lincoln ran around the path 4 times. So the path is 8 kilometers around, and someone runs it 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So that's the same thing as 8 times 4, which is what's 8 times 4? That's right, 32. So we are taking a number and we are repeating it, right? It's 8 4 times. So it's like 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8, which is 32. Another way to say that is you're taking 8 is being taken 4 times. Just another way to express that. Okay, but now here is where we get into the fraction part, but it's the same thing, okay? So Joshua ran around the same path 1/4 of the time. So it's 1/4 times 8. So another way to look at this, the whole thing, right, is 8, but you're only doing 1/4 of it. So what I did is I divided up my path into 4 equal parts. So he's only running 1/4 of it. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4 makes my whole. So he's only running this part right there. And the whole thing equals 8. So another way to think about it is like 8 divided by 4, right? So each one of these has to be 2. This is 2, this is 2, this is 2, this is 2, because it's got to equal 8. So 8 taken 1/4 of the time is equal to 2. Another way to do it is I did it over here. I got my 8 miles and I had to divide them into 4 equal groups. 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups. How many in each group? 2. So 1/4 of 8 is 2. Okay, so here's my original equation. 1/4 times 8. So another way to see this, it can also be read as 1/4 of 8. So this is one way to see it, 1/4 of 8. It can also be seen as 8 divided by 4. And this was my original equation. It can also be read as 8 divided by 4, which is equal to my 2, just like we did on the other slide. Just another way to look at it, okay? So here's another way to look at it. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 things, and you want 1/4 of them. So again, divided it into 4 equal groups. 1, 2, 3, 4 equal groups. You get 2 in each group. Okay, let's look at another example. How else can you write 1/3 of 9 and then find the answer? So let's take a look. All right, so 1/3 of 9 can be written as 1/3 of 9, just like we had up in the top. It can also be written as 9 divided by 3, 1/3 times 9. It can also be seen as 9 divided by 3. And so that's going to equal 3. So this is taking 9 things and dividing it up into thirds. So here I drew a picture. I drew 9 sticks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I want to divide them into 3 equal groups. So because they're in 1/3. So I divided here and here, and it gave me 3 in each group. Okay, so basically what we are doing, this of, did you figure out that this of means multiplication? That's very, very important in this lesson. So write down in your math notebook, of means multiplication. So that's another way of saying that we're multiplying. You're taking part of something. So of means multiplication. So here are the basic steps for multiplying fractions. So write these down, basic steps. Remember to add a 1 to the denominator if it's a whole number. So 1/3 of 6 is the same thing as 1/3 times 6, because remember, of means multiplication. So first thing I got to do is I got to turn my whole number into a fraction. And remember that we learned that you can add a fraction bar and a 1 underneath, and it's the same thing. 6 divided by 1 is the same thing as 6, because 6 divided by 1 is 6. So the first thing you do is you rewrite the problem if it's a whole number and you put a 1 underneath. So I went ahead and did that right here. So I rewrote it 1/3 times 6 over 1. Then all you simply do is you multiply the numerators. 1 times 6 is 6. And then you multiply the denominators. 3 times 1 is 3. Don't forget your fraction bar. Then I'm done. But if your numerator is bigger than the denominator, here's my numerator, it's bigger than the denominator, then I must divide. What's 6 divided by 3? 2. Simple as that. Okay? That's it. That's how you multiply fractions. All right, so pause the video and make sure you write these steps down. All right, so you try some. Complete the equation chain like the one shown below. 1/4 of 8 is the same thing as 1/4 times 8 over 1, because remember, of means multiplication. So now I'm just going to simply multiply numerator times numerator. 1 times 8 is 8. Denominator times denominator. 4 times 1 is 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2, because my numerator is bigger than my denominator. It means I need to divide, right? So this means 8 divided by 4 is 2. So you try 1/7 of 21 and 1/5 of 30. Write those down and then come back to me. All right, so 1/7 of 21 is the same thing as 1/7 times 21 over 1. Numerator times numerator. 1 times 21 is 21. Denominator times denominator. 7 times 1 is 7. 21 divided by 7 is 3. 1/5 of 30th is equal to 6. As you can see, I rewrote it. 1/5 times 30 over 1 gives you 30 over 5, which is 6. Okay, so how's multiplying a whole number different than multiplying a unit fraction? Well, stop the video and write that down and see if you can come up with what is the difference, and then come back to me. Okay, so one thing, right? I didn't ask you how they're alike, but just they're alike. You both are multiplying, right? You're multiplying both together. Numerator times numerator. denominator times denominator, or whole number times whole number. You're basically multiplying, but how they're different. If you multiply by a whole number like 3 times 4, then your answer is going to be greater. Your product will be greater, right? So if you multiply 3 times 4, you get 12. 12 is greater than 3 and 4. But if you multiply by a fraction, in this case, a unit fraction, because that's what we're looking at, your answer is going to be less than your number. So, for example, if you multiply 3 by a fraction of 1/3, the answer is 1, which is less than 3. So, the big thing you need to see here is that when you multiply by a fraction, your product gets smaller. So, this is very important. So, this is so important that I want you to write this down in your math notebook. Um, when, right here highlighted in yellow, write this down. When you multiply by a unit fraction, the answer is smaller. Then write down an example here. 1/4 times 8 is 2. And 4 times 2 is 8, because I want you to see that when you multiply by a fraction, and in this case a unit fraction, your answer gets smaller because you're only taking a part of something. So that's why it's getting smaller. So write that down. All right, so what did you learn today? Proof of learning by solving a problem. So go ahead and write down a problem that involves multiplying a whole number by a unit fraction, and then write a reflection or a question you still may have.